Alright, now that we've finished modeling our plane, the next thing we want to do is to texture map it. Okay, so this is the final model of my plane, which I have tweaked and I applied a subdivision level of 3. Okay, so you want to get it to look something like this. Okay, before you can get the texture on the plane, you have to do something called a UV layout process. So I'm going to go back to object mode, go to textured mode, and if I go to edit mode, you can see on the right in the UV image layout window here, okay, they have laid out the different islands of the model. Okay, in order to get to this process, you can apply seams on the models so that when you apply a UV unwrap, all the islands will actually unfold into its corresponding islands. Okay, so you had to do several other steps like reprojection to get it to look proportionally correct. As in this case, you can see the sides, okay, the top and bottom of the plane, and then as well as the wings, and then the tail stabilizer. Okay, let's go to a file where I have not done this yet. So let's switch over to this. Okay, so in this wireframe of half the model, alright, you can see I've applied a mirror onto this model. You can see this right over here. So this is actually half the model plane. Okay, let me maximize this view. This is half the model plane, and I've applied a mirror modifier to it, and you can see the red lines on this plane here. So if I were to switch over to the UV image editor again and let you see what is the UV image layout. Oh, okay, as you can see right now, there is nothing here. And if I were to go to select all the faces by pressing A, right, you can see as of now, since I reset the UVs for this plane, all the faces are going to make use of the UV space. Now, if you have not done any UV layout initially for the model, you will not see this orange face here. Now, what this simply means, when you see this orange face here, what it means is that all the faces are all stacked on top of each other. Okay, this is the result when you press U and select the option Reset. Okay, so now I'm going to try to unwrap this. Now, I have already applied the seams, which I'm going to show you later on this model. So if I press U and I choose the unwrap option, you can see that half the plane is being unwrapped. You can see very clearly the side of the plane, okay, the up and down parts of the tail stabilizer, and as well as the wing. Okay, so now I'm going to put an image onto these parts, and then we're going to see how it appears on half of this plane. So click on image here in the UV image editor, okay, and click on image and then choose the option new image, and check on UV test grid. Okay, so and then give it a name, call it a test grid, and then click OK. Okay, so now you can see there's a UV test grid right behind the islands, and in order to see this test grid appearing on the model, you have to enable shaded or textured mode. Okay, so now you can see the checkered patterns appearing on the plane, and it is very obvious that some parts of the plane there are some problems because there are stretching going on, and the scale of the checkers are not consistent throughout. So the checker pattern is a very common and tried and true method of checking for texture distortion, and it is a great way to see whether how your textures are behaving. So in this case, we have to do some work on this to get it to look right. Okay, but anyway, I'm going to show you how to do the entire process of assigning the seams and reprojecting them. Okay, so I'm going to reset everything by pressing U, okay, while all the faces are selected. So press U and then click on reset. Now when you hit on reset, you see something very interesting happens. Like what I mentioned earlier, when you hit reset, all the faces are going to stack on one on top of each other. And remember, we have created that UV test grid Now if you zoom in into each individual face, you realize that the UV test grid textures has been mapped into each individual face. Okay, and you can see, especially for one long quad face, the textures has been stretched. Okay, so now I'm going to uh, get rid of this test grid by clicking on the X pattern here. Okay, so now everything turns white because nothing is being assigned right now. And I'm going to get rid of the seams by pressing Ctrl E and then clear seam. And this is the stage where you should start off with. Okay, so there shouldn't be any seams on your model. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to attach, or rather assign a seam that runs right across the central part of this model. Okay, and while you're in, I found that if you only have half a model, okay, and if you apply the seams and then you apply the mirror later on, the seams will be applied to the other side as well. Okay, so now let's hold on to, make sure you're in edge selection mode. Hold on to the Alt key and right mouse click to select the edge that runs right across the model like so. Okay, let me just reduce the size of the UV image editor. And then the next step, once you've selected the edge loop that runs across the plane, you press Ctrl E and select the option Mark Seam. Okay, so when you press A again to deselect, you realize there's a red line that runs all the way across your model. Okay, that will effectively cuts the plane into half. Okay, next you want to apply a seam at the root of the wing here. Okay, so the root of the wing here is this continuous edge loop that runs across the wing. So make sure you select the right edge loop, holding down Alt again, and right mouse click to select the loop, and then press Ctrl E and choose the option Mark Seam. Okay, and then press A to deselect. Now you have a edge loop that runs across the root of the wing. Now I want an edge loop that cuts right across the center of the wing. Okay, so there are a number of ways that you can do this selection. I'm going to show you two methods. You can hold down to Alt and right mouse click and select the edge loop that runs right across the wing, and as you can see here, because these are four-sided faces, the edge loop is going to run continuously all the way to the back. And what we're going to do is we're going to deselect these edges here, okay, by using a circular selection tool. Okay, as the name circular selection suggests, the first letter of circular is C. So you press C to bring up the circular selection. Now to deselect, you just middle mouse click. So it almost behaves like a paintbrush. Whenever the edge, to increase and reduce the size of selection, you just use your middle mouse. And then just middle mouse click and drag and paint. Okay, to get out of the circular selection mode, just right mouse click. Okay, we have one more tiny section over there to deselect, so I'm gonna just zoom in. Okay, and press C again and middle mouse click on it. Okay, so now that your edge, the proper edges are selected, then you can mark the seam by pressing Ctrl E and then mark seam, and then press A to deselect, and then your seam has been selected. Now I'm going to undo one step to show you another way of selection. That is to use the vertex selection method. So I'm going to switch over to vertex mode, Control Tab, go to vertex, and I'm going to start with this vertex here. Okay, this where it starts at the root of the wing, and then I'm going to go about halfway along the edge of the wing, holding down the shift and right mouse click and select this vertex. Then press this combination, Control V, and choose the option select Vertex Path. So when you click on it, it will automatically select this path nicely for you, and then you can press Ctrl E and mark the seam. Okay, so now we can continue by starting from here, selecting this vertex and going all the way to the ends here at the root of the wing. So make sure that it follows the same path. Okay, make sure when you're selecting a vertex, make sure that this vertex actually follows this loop line and cuts right across to here. Holding down to Shift to add on selection, right mouse click and select this vertex. Then press Ctrl V and select Vertex Path. And once this path has been selected, press Ctrl E, then choose the option Mark Seam. Okay, so I can now press A to deselect, and you can see my seam is now properly selected. Now this Vertex Path selection method is great for irregular shaped objects or organic models. For example, let's say you want to texture a hand or claw. Okay, so using this method, you can select the seams very effectively. Okay, so now let's focus our attention on the rear stabilizer. Now, the stabilizer is just a simple cube that has been modeled to look like this. If you watch my previous time-lapse modeling video. Okay, so there's an open end here. So selecting this is very simple. You just need to press on Alt, right mouse click along the edge here. So the loop is selected nicely for you. And then you can press Control E and then just mark the seam. And then that's all. Then just press A to deselect. And then now your seams are properly assigned. Okay, so if I were to select all the faces by pressing A and then press U again to unwrap, I'm going to get all the shapes unwrapped nicely for me. Okay, now before I do that, I want to just apply the mirror so that I have both of the halves connected to each other. So now right now I'm going to just press A to deselect, and then I'm going to press Tab to go out to object mode. Okay, so I'm going to press Z to go to shaded mode so you guys can see this. And as you can see here, I've already removed the subsurf modifier. I only have the mirror modifier here. So I'm going to turn on merge and clipping, and then I'm going to apply the modifier. So once I have applied the modifier, the mirror modifier, if you go to press tab to go to edit mode again, you realize that now the plane has become a single object. And remember, the seams we applied on one side, it will be applied to the mirror side as well. So this one will save you a lot of work in reassigning the seams again. Okay, and the best part right now is if I were to press A to select all the faces, and then I'm going to press U, okay, U for umbrella, and then select the first option, unwrap, you realize that the plane is unwrapped beautifully for you. Okay, so you can see the left side, the right side, the top and bottom part of the wing, as well as the stabilizer. Okay, so now there's one potential problem that you might face later on when you're trying to move these islands. That is when you see two vertices that are quite close to each other. In fact, if they touch each other, you might find that they'll be locked to each other. So to fix that problem, like in this case, when I right mouse click on this vertex, they are stuck to each other. Okay, right now, if you look below here, there's a button that says keep UV and edit mode selection in sync. Just turn that off, okay, and then press A a couple of times to select the whole shells again. Okay, we will be using this button quite a lot later on. I'm going to press A to deselect. So if you ever encounter this problem when you right mouse click on a vertex or the UV vertex, and then this opposite side is connected as well, just zoom in very closely. Okay, zoom in very closely, and then if both of them are selected, just press S to scale them apart. Okay, this is one trick which I found that you can use to separate the islands. So if the islands are properly selected, if you look at the fourth button here from here, okay, right now you're in UV vertex selection mode. You can go to UV edge selection mode. You can go to UV face selection mode. And then there is this button called UV island selection mode. When you're in this mode, when you click on it, the islands itself, which have been separated, okay, can be selected. And now you can see we have encountered one of the problems which I've mentioned earlier. Okay, when I click on the islands, I expected only this island to be selected, but apparently one of the vertex points are so close to one another, it actually selects the other shell instead. So let's fix this problem. So let me go to vertex mode, okay, vertex selection mode, and I'm going to select the vertex here that's causing the problem. So you can see here, okay, it looks like there's one vertex here, but actually if you zoom in closely, you can see, yeah, there you see, there are two vertices here. So to separate them, you just press S for scale, and then you just keep on scaling them until they are apart. Okay, and now if I were to select the vertex, you see that they are no longer being selected together. And if I were to go to the shell mode, I should be able to select them individually. Okay, so in order to prevent this from touching each other again, I'm just going to temporarily just move them aside first. Okay, so you can just go to the shell mode and then just make sure that all your shells can be selected individually. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now, okay, is to reproject them until they look proportionally correct. As you can, if you remember from an earlier example, when I applied the UV texture, UV test grid. Okay, this type of unwrap is distorted. Okay, so I'm going to just use the island selection mode. I'm going to select the islands and then just move them aside first. Okay, so this actually helps me to make it easier for me to do something called reprojection, UV reprojection. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to turn on this function called keep UV edit mode and mesh selection in sync. Okay, right now I just activate that, and then I'm just going to bring down the timeline here so that I got more desktop real estate. And I'm going to go over to move my cursor to the orthographic view here, and then I'm going to press 3 to go to the side view, my right orthographic view. And make sure you're in orthographic view. If not, press 5 on your number pad to switch over to it. Okay, and then make sure you don't zoom in and zoom out anymore. So keep it at a consistent size. Okay, keep it at this view, and then what you want to do is move your cursor over here and select the part that represents the side of the plane. Like for example, I want to select the island that represent the side of this plane. So I'm going to press A to deselect everything here. And you can use a number of options to select. You can use the face selection mode, and then I'm going to use the circular selection mode, pressing C. And then remember, you can zoom in, roll up and down your middle mouse to increase the size of selection. Then left mouse click and then start to paint over the faces that represents the side of the plane. And then the next thing you want to do is to reproject this side. So I'm going to press U and choose the option project from view. So when you choose this option, you just imagine you shine a parallel beam of light onto these shells. So watch what happens when I do that projection. Right now you can see this is the naturally unwrapped, okay, island of using the default unwrap. Okay, so now I'm going to reproject this by pressing U and then select project from view. Okay, so now you can see the island is now a proper shape. Is actually proportionally correct to this shape. Now, although the top and bottom parts will be a bit distorted. Now, for this tutorial, I'm going to skip showing you how to do the top and bottom. So I'm just going to show you the basics so that you can try to experiment yourself. So I'm going to press G and then just move this aside here. Okay, now I'm going to switch over to the other side. So I'm going to press A to deselect everything, and I'm going to press okay, just now I forgot my own rule of not zooming in, so try not to zoom in and zoom out. So anyway, we're going to switch to the opposite side. So when I press 3 to get to this view in number pad, if I'm going to go to the opposite side, you press Control number pad 3 to go to the left side. Okay, so now we need to choose, move the cursor here and choose the left shell or left island. Okay, so right, you can use the C to bring the circular selection tool, left mouse click, and then paint over the left island. Okay, and then going to reproject this by pressing U and then project from view. Okay, so now because I zoomed in and zoomed out, so you can see the size of the island is slightly different. It's not a big problem. Okay, later we're going to use a number of tools to unify the scaling, or to make all the scales consistent between the islands. Okay, so now let's focus our attention on the wings. So let's go to the top view and press number 7 to go to the top view. Okay, so right now, because this button here, the keep UV and edit mode mesh selection in sync button is on, if I were to right mouse click to select one of the faces here, it should register here as well. So I think I've selected the bottom face, so I'm going to turn on this button, the limit selection to only visible, so that when I click on it, then I can see, okay, so this is the top left wing. Alright, or rather this is the top, yes, this is the top left wing because the plane is facing this direction. Okay, so I'm going to press box select and then select this top part here. Alright, so I know this is the top part of the wing. Now, since the left wing and the right wing are here at the same place, we can project both the wings at the same time. So I'm going to right mouse click on this, so to identify which island is the top wing. So this one, I know this is the top right wing. So I'm going to grab this wing. Okay, going to press B and then left mouse click and drag to select this wing, press G and then move them here. Okay, so now we know that they're properly oriented. So this is the left wing, this is the right wing. Okay, or in aeronautical terms, this is the starboard wing, this is the port wing. Okay, so well, this is a bit confusing. Let me just press number 6 on my number pad to rotate it to this direction. Now this makes much more sense. Now the starboard wing. Okay, now this one is still rotated, so I'm going to press B and select these shells, islands. I keep saying shells because I used to do UV mapping in Maya, that's why I keep referring them as UV shells, but in Blender they call it islands. So anyway, so right now I've rotated 180 degrees, so now everything corresponds. So this is the left wing or port side, port wing. This is the starboard wing or the right side. So now you can see here the distortion will be happening mostly along the edges and at the sides here. So I'm just gonna box select, press B and then select the wings, the top part of the wing, and then move my cursor here, press U and then project from view. So now the left and right wings are perfectly unwrapped or laid out, okay, in this view. So I'm gonna press G and then just move these wings aside first for the time being. And then now I know that this is the bottom of the two wings. Okay, so I'm just gonna press B to box select and select the bottom wing. Now I do not want to select these, so I'm gonna press A to deselect again, press B and select the bottom islands of the wing. And then I'm going to switch to the bottom view. So I press Control 7 to go to the bottom view. And then I'm gonna press U and project from view. Okay, so now the bottom side of the wings are properly laid out. So I'm going to press G and then just put these aside first. Alright, and now let's concentrate on the tail stabilizer. So right now I'm just going to right mouse click and select and find out where are the bottom part of the shells, islands. Okay, so these are the two islands, so I'm going to press B and select these two islands. And then I'm going to press U and then project from view. Press G and then grab them and put it aside. So these are the bottom islands. Now I'm going to switch over to the top view, press 7 rather. 7 on the number pad, press A to deselect all the islands, press B and then select the top parts of the stabilizer. Then press U and then project from view. Okay, so now you realize that all the islands the scales are slightly off, especially between the left and right. So if you want to unify or normalize the scale in proportion to each other, you press A to select all the islands and then you click on UVs and average islands scale. So once you have done that, everything will be scaled proportionately correct to each other as in the real model. Okay, so you can do this. I can now switch off this button, keep UV and edit mode sync button, and you can go to island selection mode. You can actually manually arrange them. For example, I know this is the top part, these two are the bottom of the wing, okay, and then this is the top part of the wing, I think, in the bottom. And you can actually try to rescale them and until everything fits within this UV space. Okay, but there is a tool which you can use. I'm going to press A to select a couple of times to select all the islands. Then I'm going to click on UVs, and then I'm going to use the Pack Islands tools. So you click on it, and you see that Blender will effectively use every single space in the UV space. So what this means is that if you create a texture map that is very big and detailed, okay, it's going to use up all this detail within this image space here, or the UV space here. So later when you texture map onto your plane, onto your model, or whichever model, alright, the detail is going to show. Alright, so how detailed you want your texture to be depends on the size of your texture map. So in the defaults, right, usually when you create a new image, okay, it's 1024 by 1024, but sometimes this value can go to above 4000, okay, if you want a really detailed texture map. So now we are not going to do a detailed texture map, so I'm just going to show you, once you got this layout done, how you're going to bring this layout onto an image editor and then start to create your own custom texture map. Okay, before we do that, let's bring back our UV test grid. Now, previously we created a UV test grid. Okay, we can reassign it to this layout by clicking on this icon here, the browse image, okay, and click on test grid. So now the test grid is assigned to this fresh layout that we have done. And if you want to see how the layout appears here, you have to click on this button, textured. And now you can see the squares actually appear much more consistent. Now the only problems we have are the squares on the top and the bottom. Now I'll leave that to you guys as a challenge to try to fix the top and bottom. What I can tell you is that you can actually go back to your sync selection mode and individually select the top and bottom faces and then reproject them to form new islands, okay, so that it looks something like this one which I have done. Okay, so I'll leave that to you to try it out, but for this example, okay, I'm going to just leave the layout like this. Okay, so now once I'm happy with the layout, I want to export this layout to an image editor. For example, you can use it to edit it on Photoshop or GIMP. In this case, I'm going to use GIMP, and let's export this layout. So click on the UVs button here and then export the UV layout, and it's going to ask you, okay, where you want to export it. I'm going to export it to my tutorial folder here, and I'm going to give it a name so that I can easily find it. Okay, plain UV layout. Okay, it's going to export as default PNG, so now export it as a PNG. So now I'm going to go to my GIMP program, which I already opened. Then I'm going to go to File, open the file, okay, which I've created. So I should be able to find the UV layout here. All right, then I just click Open, and you will see the layout nicely done for you. Now the checker pattern you see here just simply means that it's a transparent, so it's not the same as the checker pattern you see in Blender here. Okay, so you can see it's very, very different. So this UV layout is exported with a transparency channel. So what we want to do right now is, because of the UV layout, we can start to paint the textures. So before we do that, let's create a layer where we can actually paint the texture. So I'm going to go to the layers window here and click on new image, and then I'm going to click on the option white. So I'm going to have the white option behind this, then click OK. So this new layer is on top of the layout, so that's why you can't see anything. So I'm going to move this layer down by clicking on this down arrow. Okay, so now you can see the lines very, very clearly. Okay, now if you want to be very accurate, remember the tree view drawings which I used to model this plane. You can actually open that tree view drawing, okay, like this one is with the guides, okay, and you can actually cut and copy sections of this and then try to align it onto this window. Okay, let me just show you one quick example. So I'm just going to select, okay, just this portion of the plane, and then I go to edit and then copy, close this. Okay, I do not want to save, and then I'm going to edit, paste as layer, new layer. Okay, and then I'm going to position it just between the lines here. And now if you can't move it, make sure you hold down to Shift and then your move key. All right, so then you press Shift T to go to scale mode, and holding down to Control, you can proportionately scale this. Click on the center portion here and then try to fit the texture here, and then once you're happy with this, you apply the scale. Okay, and then you can press M to go to move. And okay, so if this happens, you press Ctrl Z, make sure you select the clip the layer which you want to move, holding down to Shift. Okay, then you'll be able to move this. Okay, so you can use this, you can use photographs, all right, textures of real aircraft, and then put the textures in. Okay, so let me undo this. Let me just get rid of this. Okay, and I will just concentrate on the new layer which I created earlier, and I'm just going to paint my own unique texture. So I'm going to pick a green color, dark green color, and then I'm gonna use my brush. Okay, press the bracket keys to increase the size of my paintbrush, and right now I just start painting. Okay, I'm gonna increase the strength. Okay, and start to paint the sides of my plane. Right, so this is the right side of my plane. Okay, earlier I didn't verify which is the top and bottom part of the wing. So if you want to do that, right, you can actually do it before you export the UV layout. So right now I have no idea, because of the design of this wing, it is actually a parallel wing. So right now I have no idea whether this is the top or bottom. So I'm just gonna paint everything green. Okay, in fact, to make it fast, I'm just gonna fill the whole gonna select all and then fill with foreground color. Okay, so everything is now green. Okay, I'm gonna now pick a blue color to just paint the cockpit area. Just use a brush this time. Okay, and then just paint this section here, and maybe just paint this section here. And now I'm doing this very roughly so you guys can see how this is done. Okay, you can create text. Alright, I'm gonna create text. They call this my UV layout, and then I'm going to change the color to black, and then the font size, I'm going to increase it. Okay, and this font is not very nice looking, so I'm just change something like this. Okay, so okay, click on the text, hold down the shift, and press M to go to move, and then just put one here. Alright, and then maybe I just gonna, you have to excuse me for being sloppy here, because I just want to keep this video fast so that you guys can try out. So I'm going to go back to the layer and then just paint something here and change another color, maybe a yellow color this time. Okay, on the left side. Okay, now I want to bring in an image, roundel, Air Force roundel. This is the old Singapore Air Force roundel, and I'm going to just select this by pressing Ctrl C. Alright, you can click on select all, but actually that's not really necessary because by default everything's selected. Press Ctrl C, then close this, don't save, and then edit paste as new layer. Okay, so this roundel is obviously very big, so I'm going to press Shift T, and then holding down the Control to proportionally scale it down. So now just click on scale. So now I have this this roundel. Okay, and I'm gonna convert this into a new layer. Okay, right now you can see here under the layers it says there is a floating selection. So I'm gonna right mouse click and then convert into a new layer. Then holding down the shift while in move mode, holding down the shift, and then you can grab it and then just place it wherever you want. Okay, let's just create roundels all over the place. I'm gonna duplicate this by clicking, dragging it down, and then duplicate another layer. Then okay, let's try that one more time. It's not duplicating. Okay, the duplicate doesn't seem to work, so I'm gonna just, oh okay, my mistake. Select the layer and then click on this button. Okay, doesn't work like Photoshop where you can drag it down to the icon here. So I was in Photoshop mode there. So anyway, so I got a new copy, so then I can just grab and then just put maybe one here on the side of the plane. Okay, and then just duplicate another one, and then press Shift T, just scale it down, holding down the Control, then scale, then select move, and then just create a few more. Then just put one on the tail fin here, duplicate another one, and then just put one maybe I don't know, right here. do that. Okay, and then holding down the shift and then move the words out here. Now obviously you can spend a lot of time custom creating your textures. Okay, so I'm doing this very quickly and very roughly here. Okay, let's just create some specs. Okay, by just painting. Okay, I need to navigate down to the original layer so I can start to paint splotches. I'm creating all this sort of like a camouflage pattern on the plane itself. Okay, so now I got my horrible looking textures done. Once you're happy with this texture, let's say you spend hours and hours perfecting this texture, you can then collapse this. Now before you collapse this image, or in fact you can choose not to collapse it. What you want to do is you want to hide the lines. You do not want to show the lines onto this texture. So remember this step, this is very important. Click on this eyeball symbol here to hide the UV layout lines. Then you can start to save as. Now before you export, you can of course save this whole project. So if you want to work on these layers again, you can. So go, now let's just straight away export it as an image. So file, save as. I'm going to save it as a plain texture. I'm just going to call it texture. .png, and then we're going to save it as a JPEG. Okay, let me change it to a JPEG. Now you can use whatever image formats, but usually PNG is fine. Okay, JPEG and even TGAs are fine. So I'm going to save this as JPEG and then just export. Okay, I'm going to leave a default and then just save. So now I have my texture. So let's go back to Blender, and now watch this. You can click on this button here, or rather click on image here and click on open image and navigate to the folder containing the file or the texture which you have just exported, so which is here, this plain texture. Double click on it to load it, and there you see your texture is now mapped onto your plane. Okay, so just now before I export the UV, I didn't check where is the top and bottom part of the wing, so that's why the orientation of this is a bit off. Okay, but I'll leave you guys to figure out how to do that. But we are not done yet. Okay, right now when we open an image in the UV layout window, what we are seeing is what the image will look like if it's been texture mapped as a material onto your plane. Because if I were to render this, okay, by pressing F12, I don't see anything. The texture doesn't appear. That is because we haven't assigned any material with this image as a texture map onto this plane yet. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the steps into applying the texture. So I'm going to press tab to go out to object mode. So with the plane selected, move over to your properties panel here and click on the material tab, and then click on this button to assign it a new material. Okay, once that is done, move your cursor over to the texture panel and then click on new texture. Okay, the default texture is always clouds, but we are assigning an image as a texture, so click on the clouds button and change it to image or movie. Next, you can click on open to open up the file, but since we already opened up this image, so it should be kept inside the browser buffer, so click on this browser button instead and choose plain texture.jpg, which we already opened, and you can see the texture is now loaded here. Alright, and now one more final step is the coordinates. Because we already laid out the UV textures, we want this to be mapped according to its UV texture map rather than its original generated coordinates. So click on this button and change it to UV. And you can go back to the material and you can see the material or the texture map is now mapped onto this, the sphere here. In fact, you can click on the cube, you can see the materials appearing here. Now, so this time, if I were to hit render, if I press F12 to render it, there you see it. The textures appear nicely where I want it to be. Okay, so in order to make your texture look a bit nicer, okay, let me just create a few more lights. I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate another light, Shift D to duplicate another light, put one light across here. Okay, go back to the camera view again, and maybe readjust my camera and render this. So it's starting to look a little bit better. Okay, so because my plane is not subdivided, okay, I press escape, right mouse click, and then I'm going to press control top row number 3. Okay, okay, right now you can see all the wires here. I'm going to just hide the wires because I think I turned on my wire display here. Over here, let me just, yeah, hide the wires, okay, under the object panel here. Okay, so now I've applied a subsurf modifier of level 3. Let me just press F12 to render it, and you can see you have the nice smoothed out plane, okay, and with the textures applied nicely. Okay, so now of course you can tweak your materials further. For example, let me just get rid of the hardness of the specular. Okay, maybe I change it to a blend. Okay, and then I'm gonna just bump up the mid of the material, and then I'm gonna just render a higher resolution image, 100%. Then render by pressing F12, and you can see this is the final result. Okay, of course you can see the top and bottom here. This is a little bit messed up, but I'll leave that to you guys to figure out how to fix that. So once you've done your layout properly like this, okay, you can even bring in photograph textures. Okay, this is a partially done photographic texture that I have done, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so if I were to render this, okay, you can see the result. This actually looks pretty good. Okay, of course the wings, I haven't done the wings and the stabilizer yet. Okay, so that, my friends, is how you do UV layout for a model like this. Okay, so the same principle applies to UV layout for any other objects as well. So I hope this tutorial will help you get your mind around this topic, because sometimes it can be very confusing. I understand, because when I first do UV layout, it is completely confusing for me. So I hope this video will help you to understand this concept. Okay, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys will try this out.